I swore I'd never cross that line at work, but something about them made me question everything I knew. The merger between our firms was supposed to be seamless, two marketing agencies becoming one powerhouse. But mergers mean new faces, new dynamics, and in my case, a new department head who seemed determined to make my life complicated from day one. Ryan Collins walked into our first team meeting 10 minutes late, designer coffee in hand, not bothering to apologize. Tall with dark hair that seemed perpetually tousled, he had this intense focus when he spoke that made everyone lean in slightly. Including me, despite my irritation. Lauren Miller, he read my name off the team roster, his eyes finding mine, across the conference table. Senior content strategist, 5 years with Apex. Most successful campaign was the Westfield rebranding. I straightened. 6 years, actually. And the Westfield campaign was a team effort. A smile played at the corner of his mouth. Humble, noted. He made a small mark on his paper before continuing down the list. That's when I should have known. Ryan Collins wasn't just assessing our professional capabilities. He was cataloging our personalities, our pressure points, our potential. For the first week, he shadowed each team member individually. When my turn came, I prepared meticulously, organizing my client portfolios and presentation decks. I expected a standard evaluation. What I got was Ryan pulling a chair beside my desk, so close I could smell his cologne, something woodsy and expensive. "Show me how you think, Lauren," he said, gesturing to my computer. "Not your polished work. I want to see your process." For 3 hours, he watched me brainstorm, questioned my instincts, challenged my assumptions. It was exhausting and exhilarating. By the end, my defenses had slipped, and I found myself laughing at his dry observations about industry trends. "You're good," he said finally, leaning back. "Better than your portfolio shows." Is that a compliment or criticism? Neither. Just an observation. His eyes held mine for a beat too long. "You hold back in your presentations. I'm curious why." The question caught me off guard. No supervisor had ever noticed that about me before. "I focus on what clients want to hear." "And what about what they need to hear?" Ryan stood, stretching slightly. "Join me for dinner tonight. I want to discuss some ideas for the Remington pitch." It wasn't really a question, and I should have said no. Working dinners with department heads were political minefields, but something about the challenge in his eyes made me nod. "Fine, but I choose the restaurant." His smile widened. "I wouldn't have it any other way." I told myself it was strictly professional as I spent extra time getting ready that evening. The black dress was just office-appropriate cocktail attire. The extra touch of perfume was just professional courtesy. The restaurant I chose was upscale. Enough to impress, but public enough to keep things appropriate. At least that was the plan until Ryan texted that he'd reserved a private dining room instead. "More conducive to work discussions," his message read. As I approached the restaurant, I felt a flutter of something I hadn't experienced in years. Anticipation, worry. I couldn't quite name it, but I knew walking through that door would change. Something fundamental between us. What I didn't know was that someone else from the office had spotted me entering. Someone who had their own reasons for watching Ryan Collins very carefully, and their presence would turn this simple dinner into something far more complicated than I could have imagined. Subscribe for more workplace confessions. What would you do if you found yourself drawn to someone you shouldn't want? The private dining room was tucked away at the back of the restaurant, all dark wood and amber lighting. Ryan was already there, jacket draped over the back of his chair, sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned forearms. He stood when I entered, his eyes taking in my appearance with unhurried appreciation. "You look exceptional," he said simply. "I always dress professionally for work meetings," I replied, trying to reclaim some boundary. He smiled as he pulled out my chair. "Is that what we're calling this?" The waiter appeared with wine already selected, a bold red that Ryan insisted paired perfectly with creativity. I should have objected, kept things strictly business, but when he raised his glass in a toast to honest work, I found myself leaning into the moment. We did discuss the Remington pitch for about 20 minutes. Then the conversation shifted to our backgrounds, our career paths, our frustrations with the industry. Ryan was surprisingly candid about the merger. Half the executives see you as a threat, he said between bites of his steak. They pushed me to restructure your team, minimize your influence. I set down my fork. And what did you decide? That they're idiots. He leaned forward, voice dropping. You're the most valuable asset in this merger, Lauren. The question is whether you know it. The intensity in his gaze made me reach for my wine. You barely know me. I make quick assessments. It's my job. His fingers brushed mine as he refilled my glass. For instance, I know you're holding back right now, calculating how much professional distance to maintain. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. And you're deliberately trying to dismantle that distance. I'm curious why. Ryan sat back, a smile playing at his lips. Touché. Our desserts arrived, something chocolate I barely tasted. The conversation continued, but with a new undercurrent. Each question seemed to carry double meaning. Each answer revealed more than intended. When the bill came, Ryan insisted on paying. Company card, he explained, though we both knew this dinner had strayed far from reimbursable territory. Outside, the night air was cool against my flushed skin. Ryan stood close, too close, as we waited for the valet. I should call a rideshare, I said, checking my phone. I can drive you. His offer hung between us, loaded with possibility. That would be inappropriate. I kept my tone light but firm. His laugh was soft, genuine. At least you're honest about it. He took a step closer. Lauren, Ryan? Lauren? What a surprise. We both turned to find Mia Chen, our company's legal counsel, approaching with a curious smile. I stepped back from Ryan instinctively. Working dinner, I explained too quickly. On a Friday night? Mia's eyebrows raised slightly. Dedicated, I'm meeting clients myself. She glanced between us. The merger's keeping everyone busy, it seems. Ryan's expression revealed nothing. Mia, always a pleasure. If you'll excuse us, Lauren and I were just finishing up. Of course. Mia's smile didn't reach her eyes. See you both Monday. As she walked away, I felt a knot form in my stomach. Mia wasn't just any colleague. She was notoriously close to our CEO. And something in her expression told me she'd drawn her own conclusions about our dinner. That complicates things, Ryan murmured. Only if there were things to complicate, I replied, stepping toward the approaching rideshare I'd ordered. Ryan caught my hand before I could open the car door. Lauren. His voice was low, serious. I respect professional boundaries, but I don't believe for a second that what's happening between us is purely professional. Do you? I pulled my hand away gently. What I believe is that we should both consider the implications very carefully. Good night, Ryan. In the backseat of the rideshare, I leaned against the window, mind racing. I'd built my career on smart decisions, calculated risks. Nothing about Ryan Collins felt calculated. He was a wild card, a risk I couldn't quantify. Monday. Morning arrived with an email from the CEO's office. All department heads and senior team members were called to an emergency meeting at 9 a.m. No agenda attached. When I walked into the conference room, Ryan was already there, deep in conversation, with our CEO. Mia sat nearby, glancing up as I entered. I took a seat as far from Ryan as possible, but when our eyes met briefly across the table, the electricity from Friday night was still there, undimmed by fluorescent lights and corporate surroundings. The CEO stood, face grave. I've called you. All here because we have a situation. Someone has been accessing confidential merger documents and sharing them with our competitors. A chill went through the room. We've narrowed down the access points, the CEO continued. The breach came from someone in this room? All eyes began darting around, suspicion clouding the air. Ryan's expression remained unreadable, but I noticed his gaze drift briefly to Mia. Then the CEO turned directly to me. Lauren, given your access privileges, we'd like to start by examining your communications. My heart stopped. My communications? Just protocol, Mia interjected smoothly. Though your late-night meetings with Mr. Collins shortly after sensitive information was leaked does raise certain questions. Ryan stood abruptly. That's completely out of line. Lauren has been nothing but an asset to this company. The CEO raised his hand. Ryan, while I appreciate your defense, your judgment in this matter might be compromised. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. In one weekend, I'd gone from valued team member to suspected corporate spy, all because of one dinner that crossed invisible lines. As the meeting continued, my mind raced through possibilities. Who was behind this? Why target me? And why did Ryan's defense feel both comforting and somehow suspicious? When we finally broke, Ryan tried to approach me, but I shook my head slightly. Too many eyes were watching, too many whispers circulating. Instead, I retreated to my office, locking the door behind me. My computer pinged with a message, not from the company system, but my personal email, from an address I didn't recognize. Not what it seems. Meet me in parking garage, level 3, 7 p.m. Come alone. Trust no one. I stared at the screen, pulse quickening. The message could be from anyone. Ryan, Mia, another colleague, or someone I hadn't even considered. Going could be walking into a trap, or it could be my only chance to clear my name. As I deleted the message, I noticed my hands were trembling. The line I'd sworn never to cross at work had blurred beyond recognition, and now I was standing on the edge of something much darker than forbidden attraction. The question wasn't whether I would go to the parking garage tonight. It was what version of myself would emerge from this tangled web of suspicion and desire when it was all over. The rest of the day passed in a fog of paranoia. Every glance felt accusatory, every whispered conversation potentially about me. I buried myself in work, avoiding the break room and taking lunch at my desk. Twice, Ryan sent meeting invites that I declined. Once, Mia appeared at my door, only to be told I was on an important call. By 6:30, most of the office had emptied. I gathered my things slowly, heart pounding as I checked the time. The rational part of me knew I should go home, maybe call HR in the morning. But something deeper, curiosity, desperation, or perhaps that same inexplicable pull I felt toward Ryan, pushed me toward the parking garage. Level 3 was dimly lit and eerily quiet when I arrived. I clutched my bag tighter, scanning the sparse collection of cars. A movement between two concrete pillars caught my eye, a figure stepping out of the shadows. You came. Not Ryan's voice. Not Mia's. Oliver Reed, our head of IT security, emerged into the weak fluorescent light. Tall, lanky, with perpetually rumpled clothes and dark circles under his eyes, Oliver was the last person I expected. You sent that email? I asked, keeping my distance. He nodded, glancing nervously around. I had to warn you. You're being set up. For what? By whom? The security breach. Someone's created a trail leading back to your credentials. He pulled out a tablet, fingers flying across the screen. Look at these access logs. They show you downloading confidential files at 11:42 p.m. last Friday. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. I was at dinner with Collins. I know. Oliver's expression was grim, which is why I checked the security footage. Someone used your computer after hours wearing your ID badge? Who? That's the problem. The camera angle only shows the back of their head, but they knew exactly what they were doing, both with the security system and with framing you. I leaned against a car, mind reeling. Why tell me this? Why not go to the CEO? Oliver's laugh was bitter. Because I don't know who to trust anymore. The merger has everyone positioning for power. Collins has been meeting privately with several team leads. Mia's been working late, accessing files outside her department. Even the CEO has been behaving erratically. And you? What's your angle here? Oliver looked genuinely offended. I've been with this company 8 years, Lauren. I built these security protocols. Someone's compromising my system to hurt you. I want to know why. His sincerity seemed genuine, but in my newly paranoid state, I couldn't be sure. What do you suggest? We need to catch them in the act. Set a trap. He lowered his voice. I've created a dummy file. labeled it as containing the complete post-merger staffing plan. It's actually embedded with tracking code. If someone opens it, I'll know exactly which device they used. And you need my credentials to plant it. He nodded. It has to look legitimate, like you're the one who created it. Everything about this screamed danger, but what choice did I have? If someone was framing me, I needed proof. Fine, I agreed reluctantly. But we do this together. Tonight. 20 minutes later, we were back in the empty office. Oliver moved with surprising stealth as we made our way to my desk. I logged in, watching as he uploaded the file to my drive and adjusted the timestamp. Now we wait, he whispered, shutting down my computer. The system will alert me when it's accessed. As we turned to leave, the elevator at the end of the hall dinged. Oliver grabbed my arm, pulling me into the supply closet. Through the sliver between door and frame, I watched as Ryan Collins strode purposefully down the hallway, straight toward my office. My breath caught. Oliver's eyes met mine in the darkness, his expression unreadable. Ryan paused at my door, glancing around before entering. My stomach knotted as I heard my desk drawer opening. "He's searching your desk," Oliver breathed, barely audible. I shifted slightly for a better view, accidentally knocking a box of paper clips. The sound, though small, seemed deafening in the silence. Ryan froze, then moved toward the closet. "Hello? Is someone there?" Oliver tensed beside me. I held my breath, mind racing through explanations for why I'd be hiding in a closet after hours with the IT director. The closet door swung open. Ryan's expression moved from surprise to confusion to something darker as he registered our presence. "Lauren? What the hell is this?" "I could ask you the same thing," I replied, stepping out of the closet with as much dignity as possible. "Why are you searching my desk?" Ryan's eyes flicked to Oliver, then back to me. "I received an anonymous tip that evidence was planted in your office. I was trying to find it before Mia's team conducts their official search tomorrow. And I'm supposed to believe you're helping me?" The hurt in my voice surprised even me. "Yes, you are." His voice dropped. "Because despite what you might think, I don't mix business with pleasure. Our dinner was genuine, Lauren. What's happening now is something else entirely." Oliver cleared his throat. "As touching as this is, we have bigger problems. Collins, if you're really trying to help, we could use you. I've set a trap for whoever's actually behind the breach." Ryan hesitated, then nodded. "Let's take this to my office. It's not safe here." As we followed Ryan, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. The three of us formed an unlikely alliance: the suspected leak, the mysterious department head, and the paranoid IT director. Ryan's office was spacious and surprisingly sparse. He closed the blinds before turning to us. "Now, explain exactly. What's going on?" Oliver detailed his findings while I watched Ryan's reactions carefully. His face remained impassive until Oliver mentioned the timestamp of the security breach. "Friday at 11:42, Ryan interrupted. "That's not possible." "Why not?" I asked. "Because at 11:42 you were getting into a rideshare outside the restaurant." I was still waiting for my car. We were together. A chill ran through me. "Exactly. Which means someone knew about our dinner," Ryan finished. They timed this perfectly. The realization hit all three of us simultaneously. This wasn't opportunistic. It was calculated. Someone had been watching us, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Oliver's phone buzzed. He checked it, eyes widening. "The file's been accessed, just now." "From where?" Ryan demanded. "The executive floor. Specifically..." Oliver looked up, face pale. "From Mia Chen's office." Ryan was already moving toward the door. "We need to get there, now." The executive floor was dark except for a single light spilling from Mia's office. The three of us moved silently down the hallway, Ryan in the lead. Through the glass walls, I could see Mia at her computer, face illuminated by the screen. Ryan pushed the door open without knocking. "Working late, Mia?" She startled, quickly minimizing whatever was on her screen. Ryan, Lauren, Oliver. What an unexpected gathering. "We know what you're doing," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. The security breach, the false trail leading to me, it was all you. Mia's professional smile never faltered. That's a serious accusation, Lauren, especially from someone currently under investigation. Oliver stepped forward. I've tracked the file. You accessed it using Lauren's stolen credentials. Something flickered in Mia's eyes. Alarm quickly masked. I'm reviewing evidence as part of the investigation. That's my job. At midnight on a Monday, Ryan challenged, without authorization. Mia stood slowly. I don't answer to you, Ryan. Only to the board. Who do you think ordered me to investigate Lauren in the first place? Why me? I demanded. What possible reason? Because you're the perfect scapegoat, Mia interrupted coolly. Talented enough to have the access we needed. Expendable enough that no one would question your dismissal. We? Ryan picked up on the word immediately. Mia's smile turned cold. You didn't really think this merger was about synergy, did you? It was about acquisition. Specifically, acquiring Apex's client list and intellectual property before dismantling it entirely. The blood drained from my face. You're selling us out. I'm ensuring my place in the new structure, Mia corrected. As should you, Ryan. The offer still stands. Ryan's expression hardened. I never agreed to this. But you didn't stop it either, Mia observed. You knew what was happening when you took this position. The accusation hung in the air as I turned to Ryan, searching his face for denial. What I saw instead sent ice through my veins. Guilt. Lauren, I can explain, he began. But before he could say more, the office door opened again. The CEO stepped in, face grim as he took in the scene. I think, he said quietly, we all have some explaining to do. The tension in the room solidified, thick enough to touch. In that moment, standing between Ryan and Mia, I realized that the line I'd worried about crossing with Ryan was nothing, compared to the one I now found myself straddling, between truth and deception, loyalty and self-preservation. And as four pairs of eyes locked in silent standoff, I knew that by morning, nothing about my career or my life would be the same. The CEO's office felt like a courtroom at midnight. The four of us sat in tense silence as security officers secured Mia's computer and Oliver hooked up various devices to capture evidence. I couldn't look at Ryan, who'd tried repeatedly to catch my eye since we'd been escorted upstairs. Let me understand this correctly, the CEO, Nathan Ford, said carefully. Ms. Chen, you've been using company resources to undermine our merger partner and frame Ms. Miller for corporate espionage. Mia's composure had cracked slightly, but her voice remained steady. I was following directives from the board, Nathan. This isn't personal. And you, Mr. Collins? Nathan turned to Ryan. What exactly was your role in this? Ryan leaned forward, hands clasped. I was brought in to assess which Apex assets were worth retaining post-merger. I had no knowledge of Mia's activities or any plan to sabotage employees. Yet you didn't deny it when she implied you knew what was happening, I said quietly. Ryan's eyes finally met mine, filled with something that looked like regret. Because I suspected something wasn't right. I just didn't have proof. Convenient, Mia scoffed. Nathan held up his hand. Mr. Reed, what have you found? Oliver looked up from Mia's computer. It's all here. Communications with board members, discussing the systematic dismantling of Apex, plans to frame Lauren as the scapegoat for leaked information, even... He paused, looking uncomfortable. Instructions to monitor Ryan and Lauren's interactions to find vulnerabilities. My cheeks burned as the implications settled. You were watching us? The dinner was perfect timing, Mia finished, dropping all pretense. You two were so wrapped up in each other, you never noticed my assistant taking photos. We needed you distracted while we accessed your computer. Ryan stood abruptly. This is corruption at the highest level. The board can't possibly... The board authorized a strategic acquisition, not corporate sabotage, Nathan interrupted. Mia has overstepped significantly. Don't be naive, Mia laughed bitterly. Half the board knew exactly what I was doing. The other half didn't want to know. That's how these things work. Nathan's face hardened. Security will escort you out, Ms. Chen. Your access is revoked effective immediately. The board will receive my full report in the morning. As security led Mia away, she paused at the door. This isn't over. None of you understand what you're up against. When the door closed behind her, a heavy silence fell. Oliver excused himself to continue documenting evidence, leaving me alone with Ryan and Nathan. Lauren, Nathan turned to me. I owe you an apology. You've been caught in something unconscionable. I nodded stiffly, still trying to process everything. What happens now? Now, Nathan sighed, we salvage what we can. The merger will likely be dissolved once this reaches the board. Apex will need to stand on its own again, with significant client concerns once this gets out, Ryan added. If it gets out, Nathan corrected, this stays contained for now. After discussing next steps for damage control, Nathan left to make calls, leaving Ryan and me alone in the glass-walled office. The city lights sparkled beyond the windows, deceptively peaceful against the chaos of the night. Lauren, Ryan began, about the dinner. Was any of it real? I asked, not sure I wanted the answer. Or was I just part of your assessment? Ryan moved closer, close enough that I could see the fatigue in his eyes. Everything I said to you was real. Yes, I was brought in to evaluate the merger. But what happened between us? That had nothing to do with my job. How can I believe that? You knew something was wrong with this merger and said nothing? I had suspicions, not proof. And yes, I should have said something sooner. His hand reached for mine, hesitating before making contact. I made a mistake. But my feelings for you weren't part of it. The warmth of his fingers against mine sent an unwelcome current through my body. I pulled away. I need time to process all this. I understand. But first, he pulled out his phone, showing me an email. The board is calling an emergency meeting tomorrow. They're scrambling to contain this. We need to be prepared. I glanced at the message, noting the list of attendees. They've invited the Apex leadership team too. This is where it gets complicated, Ryan said quietly. Nathan thinks he can control the narrative, but if half the board was complicit as Mia claimed, the realization hit me. Then we're still in danger. Exactly, which is why we need to be strategic tonight. For the next 3 hours, Ryan, Oliver, and I worked furiously, gathering every piece of evidence, duplicating files, and preparing our case. By 4 a.m., we had compiled an irrefutable record of the conspiracy against Apex. As dawn broke, Ryan and I stood in the empty parking garage, the same level where this had all begun with Oliver's warning just hours ago. Ready for this? Ryan asked, holding the door of his car open for me. I clutched the secure tablet containing our evidence. Not really, but what choice do we have? The boardroom was already tense when we arrived. Executives from both companies sat divided on opposite sides of the table, like opposing armies. Nathan nodded slightly as we took our seats. Mia was conspicuously absent. The chairman called the meeting to order, beginning with a sanitized version of the previous night's events. As he spoke about unfortunate misunderstandings and rogue actions, I felt Ryan tense beside me. When the chairman finished his whitewashed account and began discussing moving forward, Ryan stood. Before we continue, there's something the board should see. The evidence we presented was devastating. Emails, financial projections, recorded conversations, all pointing to a systematic plan to destroy Apex from within. As the presentation concluded, several board members had visibly paled. "This is outrageous," one finally sputtered. "These actions were never authorized." "Your signatures suggest otherwise," I replied, displaying the document Oliver had recovered. What followed was corporate chaos at its finest. Denials, accusations, threats of legal action. Through it all, Ryan remained steadfast beside me, his calm presence anchoring me against the storm. By noon, the merger was officially dissolved. By 2 p.m., 3 board members had resigned. By 4, Nathan had called an all-hands meeting to announce that Apex would remain independent, with a restructured leadership team. And through it all, Ryan never left my side. As employees filed out of the meeting, Buzzing with questions and theories, Ryan pulled me into an empty conference room. "It's over," he said, relief evident in his voice. "Nathan's offering me a position on the restructured executive team, and he wants to promote you to creative director." I leaned against the table, exhaustion suddenly hitting me. "I haven't decided if I'm staying yet." "I understand." Ryan moved closer, his voice softening. "But I hope you will. Not just for Apex. For us." "Us," I repeated. "Is there an us, Ryan? After everything that's happened?" "That depends." His fingers brushed a strand of hair from my face. "On whether you believe..." "Me now. On whether you're willing to take a risk that has nothing to do with corporate politics." The touch of his hand against my cheek sent that same electricity through me. The feeling I'd been fighting since that first meeting. "I swore I'd never cross that line at work," I whispered. Ryan smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Sometimes the most important lines are the ones worth crossing." As his lips met mine, I knew there would be complications. Questions from colleagues, whispers about favoritism, the complex aftermath of corporate scandal. But in that moment, with Ryan's arms around me and the knowledge that we'd faced the worst, together and survived, none of that seemed to matter. We'd found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances, a forbidden attraction that had led us through corporate conspiracy and out the other side. The path forward wouldn't be simple, but it would be ours to navigate together. And as Ryan pulled away slightly, his forehead resting against mine, I realized some risks were worth taking. Some lines were meant to be crossed. And sometimes the most unexpected connections were the ones worth fighting for. "So," he murmured, "dinner tonight? No hidden agendas this time." I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in days. "I think we've earned it." In the aftermath of corporate chaos, we had found something real. Something that began as forbidden but ended as something else entirely. Something honest, something worth the risk, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead. Subscribe and like for more workplace confessions. What would you do if a forbidden office romance led you into corporate conspiracy? Let me know in the comments.